Bonjour, bienvenue à la 13e semaine de cours du français 101 à Ivy Tech. Cette semaine, il y a beaucoup de devoirs. On va commencer le chapitre 5 où on parle de nourriture. Vous avez aussi donc deux sections dans le chapitre 5, vocabulaire interactif, communication interactive. Et vous avez cette semaine un forum de discussion et votre enregistrement avec un partenaire dans Blackboard Collaborate où vous allez commander quelque chose au restaurant. Donc il y a trois devoirs différents: Central, la discussion et l'enregistrement en paire. Je vais tout de suite sur Central pour vous montrer ce qu'on va passer sur le chapitre. Bon appétit, c'est le titre du chapitre. So you don't have to be the person serving the food to say bon appétit. You can just be walking into a restaurant when you see people eating, you say bon appétit. It's just a polite thing to do, it just means enjoy your food. So this chapter is packed with cultural references and notes because eating and food is very important in France, Belgium, Switzerland. Most people will spend 2 hours sitting at the table for most family meals on Sundays or Easter, Christmas. It's not rare to have people sit for 2 or 3 hours for Christmas dinner. So it's very much part of the culture, especially in France. This very pretty painting is by Auguste Renoir. Le déjeuner des canotiers, ça s'appelle. Renard est un peintre impressionniste du 19e siècle qui peignait des très belles peintures. Et il a des peintures au musée à Chicago, au musée d'art de Chicago, il y a des peintures de Renoir. Voilà la section communication directe. Il y a deux sections, donc on commence par une qui s'appelle ça te dit de ou ça vous dit de. And this is followed by an infinitive, an unconjugated verb. It's used to invite somebody to do something. So ça te dit de ou ça vous dit de. Par exemple, ça te dit d'aller au cinéma ce soir? Do you feel like going to the movies tonight? Ça vous dit d'aller prendre un café dans le quartier? Those are two ways to ask, would you like to do something? You can also ask the same question in another way. Tu veux aller au cinéma ce soir? Or vous voulez prendre un café dans le quartier? So the verb vouloir, to want, can also be used followed by an infinitive. To accept, with a full sentence, you can say oui, je veux aller au cinéma ou je veux prendre un café. Or you can simply say oh oui, je veux bien. Oui, samedi. Samedi, you notice, is pronounced exactly like Saturday. Samedi, S-A-M-E-D-I, Saturday. Or samedi, yeah, that sounds good. Same pronunciation. Pourquoi pas? Why not? Oui, j'aimerais bien, j'aimerais beaucoup. Avec plaisir. Volontiers. Ah oui, bonne idée. Oui, super. Those are all ways you can accept an invitation. If you are asking about what food somebody would like to eat, you can say ça te dit de manger chinois ce soir? Ou ça vous dit de manger italien ou mexicain ce soir? Those are the questions you would ask to ask your partner what type of restaurant you want to eat at. I wanted to give you a little note on the type of restaurants that do exist in Europe. So in France, Belgium, Switzerland, we have very few Mexican restaurants. Even in bigger cities, that's really not a common type of food to have. But we have a lot of Italian restaurants, Greek restaurants. Mostly they're advertised as cuisine méditerranéenne, so Mediterranean cuisine from Italy, but that also includes the Maghreb, French-speaking North African countries, so Morocco, Algeria. So when you see cuisine méditerranéenne, it's really all the countries around the Mediterranean Sea, not just the European countries that border the north of it. But the Mexican restaurants are pretty rare in Europe. We have quite a few Chinese restaurants, and it seems they serve more authentic Chinese food as they would. It's not as sweet. It seems that the Chinese food that's served here in the US is very much adapted to the taste of the public here. But Maybe the Chinese food in Europe is also adapted to European taste. I don't know. It seems to me it's more authentic, but maybe it's more European. I'm not sure. I have to ask the Chinese person about that. In a restaurant or a cafe, the server will ask you if you're ready to order. He'll probably use these words. Je peux prendre votre commande? Or, vous avez fait votre choix? And you can just say any item that you want, followed by s'il vous plaît. Par exemple, un café s'il vous plaît, une bière s'il vous plaît, un verre de vin blanc s'il vous plaît. And this will help you order with just a simple word and s'il vous plaît if you don't want to make a full sentence, if that's easier to remember. And then he or she will ask, autre chose avec ça? Or, et avec ça? What would you like with this? And you can say, juste l'addition s'il vous plaît. This is how you ask just the bill. So if you're only coming for something to drink, this is what you would use. Another way to ask for something politely is, est-ce que je pourrais avoir, and then the item that you want. So, est-ce que je pourrais avoir une serviette, une autre bière ou l'addition s'il vous plaît? Oui, bien sûr, je vous l'apporte tout de suite. Merci monsieur, merci madame, merci mademoiselle. So there are two notes to go with this. First, you have to ask for the bill. The waiter will not send you the bill or come and bring you your food with the bill. Because that would be like they're trying to kick you out of your table. And it's very common for people to order just a coffee and sit for 2 or 3 hours. In Europe, people do a lot more people watching. They sit outside, on the outside of a coffee shop, just on the sidewalk or close to the street, and they can sit there and read the newspaper or a book for a few hours and just look at who is going by on the street. So it would be impolite of the waiter to try to push you out to free up the table and bring you the bill. So you will have to ask for it, or you might sit there for 2 hours until finally you do ask for it. So l'addition s'il vous plaît is how you ask for the bill. The other note is monsieur, madame are most commonly used when you're addressing waiters and waitresses. So mademoiselle, which is miss, was more common maybe 20 years ago. Now even the young ladies are addressed as madame, monsieur, madame. It seems that it's a shift that's been taking place over the last 10-20 years. So, unless the lady is very young, it's obviously mademoiselle, but otherwise it's most of the time monsieur, madame. C'est bon? Je passe à la section vocabulaire interactif sur les magasins d'alimentation, so the food stores. Let's start with the ones at the top for the fish store. La poissonnerie is the store where you buy fish. À la poissonnerie, j'achète du poisson et des fruits de mer. Un filet de saumon, des crevettes, des moules et un homard. Un homard is a lobster. Specialized fish store. On the right here, à droite, à la boucherie-charcuterie, j'achète de la viande et de la volaille. Un poulet, un jambon, un gigot d'agneau, un beefsteak ou un rôti de porc. That is for the meat store. À la crèmerie-fromagerie, j'achète des produits laitiers, du fromage, du lait, du yaourt, du beurre. So, la crèmerie-fromagerie, you can guess, is the dairy store. La boucherie is the meat store. Et la poissonnerie is the fish store. Now, this is a street the way it looks like, you hope, in bigger cities. But a lot of the smaller cities are losing their specialized stores because they have one bigger grocery store that's getting more customers on the outside of town. People try to do one-stop shopping, or the less amount of stops that they can do, because more women work. So women used to go grocery shopping during the day, but now they work as much as the men do. So if they get out of the office at 5, they try to do their grocery shopping then. So the grocery stores are full right after 4 or 5, or even when the kids get out of school around 4 o'clock. The stores start filling up, and it's quieter throughout the day just because of the way society has shifted. So there are less smaller specialized stores where people used to go and take 2 hours to grocery shop and do one stop at each of those stores. They're still there, but they're smaller in numbers. Here is an example of a stand, a market stand. So every city has their market day, and it's always the same. Every season, the same, usually the morning, so usually the market stand set up around 6 or 7 a.m. People start shopping as early as 7:30 or 8 a.m. And by about noon on good days, maybe 2 p.m. on slow days, they close up. And then the street gets cleaned up, and by 3 or 4 p.m. the streets get reopened. So they usually put the markets on a square, but sometimes also on a commercial street that gets closed down for that specific market day. Et ça s'appelle un marché en plein air. En plein air means outdoor, outside. On achète des fruits et des légumes. On achète des pommes, des poires, des fraises, des pêches, des framboises, des haricots verts, un chou-fleur, des cornflowers, des courgettes, des champignons, en général des fruits et des légumes. Il y a un autre magasin qui s'appelle la boulangerie. La boulangerie is a bread store. Pâtisserie, pastry store. So à la boulangerie-pâtisserie, j'achète une baguette, un pain de campagne, une tarte aux fruits et un gâteau au chocolat. So you have a little cultural notes later on bread. And bread is the most important staple of French people's diet. There's bread on the table at every meal, and it's not soft bread like what you eat here in the US for the most part. They're very crusty breads. So une baguette is a long, crusty bread with very little soft parts inside. Un pain de campagne is bigger, rounder bread. The crust is still really hard, and the bread inside is more dense than a soft bread that you would buy here for sandwich bread in the US. And people usually buy their bread still from the bakery. They might get all their other things at the supermarket, but they have their bakery that they go to every other day religiously. The bread only lasts about 2 days before it gets too dry to eat, and fewer people buy their bread at the supermarket. They do only if they really have to, but most people go to their own bakery. Here's a little added information on where you go grocery shopping. So I'll let you read this note. Basically summarizes what I just said about the smaller stores, bigger stores. These are the biggest brands of supermarkets in France. Carrefour, Géant Casino, used to be 2 brands now combined into one, Géant Casino, Leclerc et Champion. Those are the equivalents to Walmart, but for groceries mostly. And this is an example of a table setting. I will post another video on how you can set the table with some more cultural notes. For here, I will just read each vocab item as it comes around in a clockwise motion. Une bouteille de vin, un verre à vin, un verre, une tasse, une petite cuillère, un couteau, une assiette à soupe, une serviette, une fourchette, une nappe et une cuillère à soupe. Une cuillère à soupe, c'est la grande cuillère. La cuillère à café, c'est la petite cuillère. So you might wonder, why do you say une bouteille de vin and you say un verre à vin? If you use à, that means that's what it's destined to hold. If you say de, that means that's what it's holding inside right now. So une bouteille de vin means a bottle of wine that's full of wine. Un verre à vin, if you're asking a waiter for un verre à vin, is a glass for wine or a wine glass that he'll bring it to you empty. If you ask for un verre de vin blanc, un verre de vin rouge par exemple, then you're asking for a full glass of wine, or for him to bring you wine to put in a glass. So it's just one little preposition difference that has a different meaning to what you're saying. There's an actual added little note on the ritual of meals, and I'd like you to read it in French because it's very good practice. On the differences between breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So the breakfast is a lot lighter in Europe on the continent. So it's just bread, pastries, coffee, and so on. Lunch is a much bigger, warmer meal with a lunch break usually lasting at least an hour, sometimes two. And dinner is a long meal. French people like to take their time to eat. They often start with an apéritif, so a small glass of whiskey or liquor, sometimes just a fruit juice, and then the meal. And they usually, it's several courses that are served one at a time, so not all at the table at the same time. You start with the appetizer and then a main meal and then the salad and the cheese. Cheese and salad is usually served together. The dessert and then a coffee. A lot of French people have coffee without caffeine at night, and most people have a coffee after lunch. So lunch is about half hour, 45 minutes, and then you have your coffee for half hour, and then people are ready to go back to work. This also again is changing with people working more compact hours than they used to, so they can get off work earlier and have afternoon activities. So less people are taking a long lunch break, but it's still common, especially on the weekends. Another small note on restaurants and tipping. A tip is not mandatory. The taxes and service are included in the bill that you get at the end of the meal, and most people don't leave a tip on the table. That's because in the US the tip and taxes are not included in your bill. People leave a 10 or 15% or 20% tip, but in Europe, most people, unless you had absolutely great service, you're not expected to leave anything on the table. So I think that is it for what you learned this week. Here's a little note in English on Marie Antoinette, the wife of Louis XVI, the King of France, said about brioche, and I'll let you read it by yourself because it's in English. Et je repasse sur Blackboard. Voilà la discussion que vous devez faire pour cette semaine sur les invitations. So you're learning in this session how to accept decline invitations and how to ask somebody to do something. So imagine or pretend that you're an exchange student in France and you're asking them if they want to go to the movie theater tonight. So one of them asks, would you like to go to the movie theater? What do you reply? Can you tell them which movie you'd like to go see or which you don't want to go see? So try to build bigger sentences. And par exemple, oui, samedi, je voudrais voir la biographie de Lincoln. Ou bien non, je ne peux pas sortir ce soir parce que je dois faire la lessive. Ou je dois faire mes devoirs. So try to use your faire expressions here or anything that you have to do. Je dois faire ou je dois plus another infinitive. Then you need to respond to a classmate in French also. Maybe somebody has a similar answer to yours, wants to go see the same movie, or cannot go because they have the same duty to do instead of going to the movies. Here is the staple of this session, is your recording in pairs. So you're going to do it on Blackboard, collaborate with a partner, and you will be ordering food at a restaurant. So one partner is the waiter, the other one is the customer. And you can, if you prefer, to meet together in person and record this in front of the same computer. On Blackboard Collaborate, you can. Most people do it distance, maybe in two different parts of the state, and one person can sit at the table and pretend to be the customer. The other person on their own desk can stand by a table to pretend to be the waiter. And you can have a conversation back and forth and record it on Collaborate. And just set your laptop or your computer at the edge of a table where you have table setting, plates, knives. So be as creative as possible. You can really have fun with this assignment. If you have trouble hearing each other, first make sure that your speakers are turned on low and they're away from your webcam, because otherwise the sound from the other person feeds back into your webcam. Also, make sure that you have a good internet connection set up, And if the sound is still not matching the picture, so you can see your partner talk but you can't hear them talk right away, maybe shut off the sound to practice the conversation and practice on the phone, and then turn the sound back on Blackboard Collaborate just when you're ready to do the recording. And if you can't hear the other person talk right away, you can just pause it for a little bit, just wait for them to reply. When they're done, you go ahead and say you reply, so that you don't interrupt each other in the recording. So that is the best advice I can give you for using Collaborate to the best of its abilities. It is a slow program. Hopefully it will get better in the near future. Here are two examples of menus that you can use, but you can use any menu from any restaurant. Here is another one. Restaurant du Marché. Salade de chèvre chaud, so salad with warm goat cheese. Salade nordique with smoked salmon. Salade exotique with ruby grapefruit and mango and so on. So I will let you look up these words. And here is your grading rubric. It's located in the resources folder. So you and your partner will be graded separately. The abilities of your partner do not interfere on your grade. So you will be graded on what you say and not necessarily how well you understand your partner. Try to practice and walk through the dialogue at least 2 or 3 times before you hit the record button, so that you are already used to the conversation by the time you record it. That is how you will be able to get the best grade possible. Voilà, c'est tout pour cette semaine, pour la semaine 13. We're almost done with this course, so you have this week, you have next week also to work on chapter 5 as well as session 15. In session 15 you'll finish chapter 5. So 3 more weeks to finish chapter 5, and then 1 session where you review for your final exam and take your final exam. And that will be it. So make sure that you give it everything you can. We only have a few weeks to go, and you can make a big change in your final grade just in these final few weeks. So hang on and work hard, and ask your instructor any question you might have. Merci. Au revoir.